Throwaway for obvious reasons because my brother knows my main. Sorry for any formatting issues. I'm on my phone in a hospital waiting room as I type this. I, female, 28, am honestly at my breaking point with my brother, male, 32, and I just need some outside perspective. So 3 weeks ago, my dad, male, 65, had this massive heart attack out of nowhere. He's always been pretty healthy. He has high cholesterol, but we all do in my family, lol, and needed emergency bypass surgery. It was absolutely terrifying. We legit thought we were going to lose him for a while there. Then my mom, female, 62, somehow caught COVID while visiting him at the hospital. Even though she was wearing a mask and everything, it turned into pneumonia super fast because she has asthma, and now they're both in the hospital at the same time, and I'm basically running their entire life. I had to take family medical leave from my job. I'm an accountant at this regional firm. Nothing fancy, but it pays the bills. And my boss was actually being kind of a jerk about it at first, making these passive-aggressive comments about timing and project deadlines until I literally broke down sobbing in his office. God, so embarrassing. I'm not usually a crier at work, but I was running on 2 hours of sleep. And then suddenly he was all understanding. Whatever. I probably looked like a complete mess anyway, which is probably why he finally backed off. It's been weird sleeping in my childhood bedroom again. I found all these old yearbooks and notes from high school friends and my old diaries. I was reading through one from when I was 16 last night, instead of dealing with the stack of medical bills I need to sort through. Procrastination at its finest, lol. So about my brother Tyler, we've always had this complicated relationship. He was always the charming, popular one that everyone loved, while I was the quiet, studious one who followed all the rules. My parents have this pattern where they constantly bail Tyler out of financial troubles, while I'm just expected to have my shit together because I'm the responsible one. Not that I'm bitter about it or anything. Okay, maybe a little. It's been like this our whole lives, basically. Tyler has visited our parents a few times at the hospital, but he always seems super uncomfortable and leaves after 20 minutes max. I originally thought he was just emotional about seeing them so vulnerable, but now I'm thinking maybe there's something else going on with him. I don't know. So yesterday, I was organizing their bills and paperwork, which, being an accountant, is actually something I'm good at, haha, when I noticed these really weird charges on their credit card statements from the past 2 weeks. I'm talking expensive electronics, designer clothes, fancy restaurants, and a bunch of online gambling sites. The total was over $11,400. While they've been in the hospital fighting for their lives, I was like, what the actual fuck is happening here? I texted Tyler about it, trying to be casual at first. I asked if he knew anything about these weird charges on mom and dad's credit cards. He claimed dad gave him the cards to handle some things while they're in the hospital. When I asked about the $900 charge at Best Buy, he said he needed a new laptop to help manage their stuff. I questioned the charges at Nordstrom and that boutique downtown, and he got defensive, saying he deserves some compensation for visiting them and helping out. When I asked about the gambling website charges, he didn't respond for hours. I texted again saying I needed an explanation, and he finally wrote back saying they owe him anyway after always favoring me, and told me to stop being a control freak. My hands were literally shaking so bad I could barely type. How could he do this to our parents while they're fighting for their lives? I'm not exaggerating when I say they could have died. Dad's still not totally out of the woods. But then I found out something else completely by accident. One of Tyler's coworkers called the house phone. Yes, my parents still have a landline, lol, looking for him, and let it slip that Tyler was fired 3 months ago for constantly being late. He doesn't even have a job right now and didn't tell anyone. So he's been lying about going to work this whole time. What has he even been doing all day? I know this is going to sound naive, but I honestly had no idea he was capable of something like this. He's always been irresponsible with money and stuff, but stealing from our sick parents, that's a whole different level. I feel so conflicted about telling my parents. Dad just had major heart surgery and mom can barely breathe on her own most days. This would absolutely devastate them. But also, I can't just let Tyler keep stealing from them. I called my cousin Vivian, who said I should wait until at least one of them is home before bringing it up, but I'm worried about how much more damage he could do in that time. I'm not usually one to snoop through other people's stuff. Okay, that's not entirely true. I definitely read my roommate's diary in college once when I suspected she was stealing my clothes. Not proud of that. But I feel like this is different. Someone has to handle their finances while they're both incapacitated, right? Part of me is just so angry that he would do this while they're literally fighting for their lives. But another part wonders if maybe he's just really stressed about them being sick and made a terrible decision. But $11,400. That's not a mistake, that's theft. And the gambling charges, is that a new thing? Or has he been hiding a gambling problem this whole time? I honestly have no idea what's really going on with him these days. Tyler showed up at the house tonight and started yelling at me for snooping in our parents' finances. He got right in my face, saying I had no right to go through their statements, even though someone had to pay their bills. He said I've always thought I'm better than him and always try to make him look bad to mom and dad and a bunch of other stuff that made no sense. He threatened to tell them I was overstepping boundaries if I mentioned the credit card charges to them. He claims they verbally approved him using the cards before dad's surgery, but I seriously doubt that. My dad is super careful with money and would never just hand over his credit cards like that. I don't know what to do. I'm visiting both of them tomorrow at their separate hospitals. So exhausting going back and forth. And I'm dreading even looking them in the eye knowing what I know now. Dad might be coming home in a week or so if everything continues improving, but Mom will be in longer. I'm so tired of dealing with this alone. Edit, some people are asking about power of attorney. Neither of my parents signed anything official before all this happened. It was so sudden. But they verbally asked me to handle everything while they're hospitalized. I have access to their online banking and accounts specifically to pay bills. A few of you have asked if Tyler has had money problems before. Yes, constantly. He's borrowed money from our parents many times over the years for various emergencies that I suspect weren't actually emergencies. They always give it to him even though I don't think he's ever paid them back. He's never stolen their credit cards before, though, that I know of. For those saying I should call the police, I'm really hesitant to do that without talking to my parents first. That feels like a huge decision to make without their input, and I don't want to make everything even worse if there's some explanation I'm not seeing, though I honestly can't imagine what that would be. Wow, this blew up overnight. To answer some common questions, yes, I've taken screenshots of all the text convos with Tyler, and no, I don't have any proof that our parents didn't give him permission to use the cards, which is what makes this so complicated. But knowing my dad, there's just no way he would have okayed 11 combo plus in random spending, including gambling sites. That's just not him. Now for the first update. So it's been about 2 weeks since my last post. First off, thank you to everyone who commented with advice and support. I read everything, even if I couldn't respond to all of it. I was honestly surprised so many people related to this situation. I guess toxic family stuff is more common than I realized. Anyway, my dad finally got discharged from the hospital last week, but Mom is still in a rehabilitation facility for her COVID complications. Her oxygen levels keep fluctuating, but the doctors say she's slowly improving. Anyway, about the Tyler situation. After thinking about it for days and reading all your comments, I finally decided to show my dad the credit card statements. I was originally planning to wait until Mom was home too, but I realized the financial damage would just keep getting worse if I waited. Tyler had already tried to order something else online, but thankfully, I'd put alerts on all their accounts. I made copies of all the statements, printed screenshots of my text exchanges with Tyler, and even made this detailed spreadsheet categorizing all the suspicious purchases. I wanted to have everything organized when I showed Dad because I knew he'd have questions, and I didn't want to seem like I was just making accusations without evidence. So last night, after dinner, I sat him down in the living room and told him there was something important we needed to discuss. I was super nervous. My hands were literally shaking when I handed him the folder. I explained that I found some concerning transactions on their credit cards while they were in the hospital. He looked confused at first and asked to see the statements. I showed him where I'd highlighted all the weird charges. He kept flipping through the pages, and his face just changed. He went completely pale. I gently mentioned that Tyler had admitted to using the cards in our text messages, and Dad asked to see those too. I showed him the screenshots of our conversations, and he read through everything twice without saying a word. The silence was so uncomfortable. I started rambling about how I wasn't sure what to do and didn't want to stress him out while he was recovering, but also didn't want to keep it from him. And he finally looked up, and I asked if he had given Tyler permission to use the cards. He slammed his hand on the table so hard, their dog ran out of the room and said, "Absolutely not." Then he immediately picked up his phone and called the credit card companies to dispute the charges. I was kind of shocked by how fast he switched into action mode, considering he's still recovering from major surgery. And then, the craziest coincidence happened. While Dad was still on the phone with the credit card company, Tyler just showed up at the house. I'm not even kidding. He walked in without knocking. He still has a key, and he was clearly drunk. He hadn't shaved in days, but was wearing what looked like expensive new clothes. Some still had tags hanging off them, what the frick, and reeked of alcohol. At first, he was all cheerful, asking how Dad was feeling and acting completely normal, until he noticed all the credit card statements spread across the coffee table. The look on his face, I'll never forget it. It was like watching someone realize they're completely screwed in real time. Dad hung up the phone and just stared at Tyler. The silence was so awkward. Tyler tried to play it cool at first, saying there must be some kind of misunderstanding about the credit cards. Dad told him to empty his pockets right then and there. And guess what? Tyler had 3 of their credit cards in his wallet. He claimed he was just holding them for safekeeping, which is the lamest excuse I've ever heard. Dad started asking about specific charges, especially the online gambling sites. Tyler tried to deflect by bringing up stuff I did years ago. I just stayed quiet and let Dad handle it because honestly, I was afraid I'd start screaming if I opened my mouth. Then Tyler just broke down, like completely fell apart crying, saying he was in $45,000 of gambling debt. $45,000. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad asked if he had used their cards to gamble more, and Tyler said he was trying to win money to pay everything back, because that makes sense. Dad checked Tyler's bank accounts online. They're still on a family banking plan from years ago, and everything was completely empty. After what felt like hours of back and forth, Dad told Tyler he had until morning to pack his things and leave. I was honestly shocked. I expected Dad to be angry, but I never thought he would actually kick Tyler out. I think Tyler was shocked too, because he just stood there staring at Dad like he was waiting for him to take it back. Dad didn't. That night, I got a call from Aunt Carla screaming at me about how I betrayed my brother and should have handled this within the family instead of running to Daddy with tales. Apparently, Tyler called her right after the confrontation. I tried to explain that this was handling it within the family and that Tyler stole thousands of dollars, but she wouldn't listen. She kept saying I've always been jealous of Tyler, and this was my way of getting back at him, which is completely insane. I feel so conflicted about everything. On one hand, I'm relieved the financial abuse has stopped. On the other hand, I feel guilty about Tyler's situation, and I'm really worried about how Mom will react when she finds out. She's always had a soft spot for Tyler. Dad says he'll tell her himself once she's a bit stronger. The worst part is somehow I'm being painted as the villain by some family members, even though I'm not the one who stole thousands of dollars from our sick parents. I don't understand how this got twisted around. I laid awake all night listening to Tyler pack his things. I could hear him moving around upstairs, occasionally sobbing. He left around 5 a.m. without saying goodbye. Dad was awake too. I could see the light under his door, but he didn't come out. I don't know what happens next. Dad seems emotionally drained but firm in his decision. I'm supposed to pick Mom up from rehab next week, and I have no idea how to explain why Tyler isn't here anymore. This whole situation is just exhausting. Edit. To everyone asking about where Tyler went, I honestly don't know. He didn't tell me or Dad where he was going. I assume he's staying with friends or maybe Aunt Carla, since she seems to be taking his side in all this. Some people are saying I shouldn't have shown Dad the evidence while he's still recovering from surgery. I get the concern, but the alternative was letting Tyler continue to drain their accounts. And Dad's doctor actually said it's important for him to slowly resume normal decision-making to aid recovery. So, for those asking about my mom, she knows something is going on but doesn't know details yet. Dad video chats with her daily and has just said Tyler is staying with friends for now. We agreed to tell her the full story once she's home and more stable. Her respiratory therapist suggested avoiding major stress while she's still working on her breathing. To the people calling me a narc for ratting out my brother, would you be saying the same thing if he stole 11 keen dollars from your parents while they were fighting for their lives in the hospital? Honestly. Now for the second update. So it's been a little over 3 weeks since my last update, and honestly, I'm exhausted. Like, emotionally and physically just completely drained. For those asking about my mom, she's finally home from the rehab facility. Her oxygen levels are still not great, but at least stable enough for her to continue recovery at home with outpatient therapy. Dad's doing better too, though he still gets tired super easily. So anyway, the day before Mom was scheduled to come home was absolute chaos. I was running around trying to get everything ready, rearranging furniture for her temporary wheelchair, setting up her oxygen machine, stocking the fridge with her favorite yogurt. The whole time I was doing all this, I kept thinking about how we were going to explain the Tyler situation to her. I finally went to bed around 2 a.m., completely wiped out, and I guess I was so tired I didn't hear my phone vibrating all night. When I woke up the next morning, I had 21 missed calls, not exaggerating. 8 from Tyler, 5 from Aunt Carla, 3 from cousin Roger, who always takes Tyler's side in everything, and the rest from numbers I didn't recognize but turned out to be Tyler's friends. I listened to the voicemails and they got progressively more desperate. Tyler started out angry, then moved to blaming me, and finally ended up sobbing about how he was sleeping in his car and had nowhere to go. I mean, that's literally what happens when you steal $11,400 from your sick parents. But okay. Dad has been surprisingly firm about all this, despite pressure from certain family members. Looking at you, Aunt Carla. She actually showed up unannounced at the house the morning Mom was coming home to lecture us both about family loyalty and how blood is thicker than water and all that BS. I stood there nodding and saying I completely agreed with Dad's decision, while simultaneously texting Tyler information about local shelters and assistance programs under the table. I know that's contradictory, but I don't know I felt guilty, even though I know I shouldn't. Anyway, the moment we'd all been dreading finally came, telling Mom everything. We waited until she was settled in at home. Dad and I sat her down in the living room, and he explained that Tyler had been asked to leave the house. Mom immediately got worried and asked what happened. Dad showed her all the credit card statements and text messages and everything, and then the weirdest thing happened. She didn't look shocked at all. She just looked down at her hands for a long time. I asked if she already knew about this, and she started crying and admitted she'd been giving Tyler money secretly for months. Dad was really upset. He asked why she never told him this. Mom kept crying and said she knew about Tyler's gambling problems for almost a year and had been trying to help him without stressing everyone out. Dad felt betrayed. He asked if both his son and his wife had been lying to him. Mom tried to defend herself, saying she was just trying to protect both the men she loved and didn't want them fighting. I suddenly realized I'd basically been caught in the middle of my parents' dysfunctional dynamic that apparently has been going on way longer than I knew about. They had this massive fight, like the worst I've ever seen between them in my entire life. Dad feeling completely betrayed that Mom had been enabling Tyler's gambling behind his back, and Mom insisting she was just trying to help our son through a rough patch without worrying everyone. It got so bad, I actually had to leave the house and just drive around for like an hour because I couldn't handle it. And then, 3 days after all this goes down, guess who shows up unannounced when both my parents are home? Tyler. At first, I thought he was being strategic about it, but honestly, when I saw him, he looked terrible. Unwashed, exhausted, wearing the same clothes from days ago. I realized he wasn't being strategic. He was just desperate after running out of friends' couches to crash on. Dad initially refused to even let him inside, but Mom was crying and begging Dad to at least hear him out. I just stood there awkwardly in the hallway, feeling weirdly responsible for everything, even though I know it's not my fault. Tyler broke down completely. He admitted he has a serious gambling addiction and has been hiding it for over a year. He said he lost his job because he would leave in the middle of shifts to go to this sketchy casino outside of town. What the frick? Dad maintained that Tyler absolutely could not move back home under any circumstances. which honestly surprised me a little because Dad has always been the softie with Tyler. Tyler kept begging for one more chance, saying he literally had nowhere else to go, and Dad offered this ultimatum: complete a 60-day rehabilitation program for gambling addiction or receive absolutely no help whatsoever. Tyler didn't want to go to rehab, saying he could handle it himself. Dad started closing the door in his face when Mom begged Tyler to accept help. Tyler finally realized he had no other options and agreed to the rehab program. So that's where we are now. Dad agreed to help Tyler, but only if he completes this 60-day rehab program. Dad's paying for it directly, not giving money to Tyler, and will help him find a place to live afterward, but only with super strict financial oversight. I actually insisted on being part of the financial oversight committee, despite Tyler accusing me of enjoying his downfall. Eye roll. I made it clear I'd support his recovery, but wouldn't enable his addiction. Oh, and we found out Mom has been secretly paying Tyler's debts for years and drained like a significant portion of her retirement savings in the process. I'm talking like $70,000 plus gone. I can't even process that number, honestly. I've spent the last week implementing financial safeguards for my parents, removing all stored credit card info from online accounts, setting up purchase alerts, helping them check their credit reports. It's so weird being the parent to your parents, but here we are, I guess. We're also starting family counseling next week to address all these issues that apparently have been simmering under the surface for literally decades. I'm still angry sometimes when I remember Tyler's attitude about using their cards while they were fighting for their health, but trying to work through that. I woke up exactly 6 weeks after all this started to another series of missed calls, but this time they were from Tyler at the rehab center. He was calling to make his formal amends as part of his recovery program. It was uncomfortable and weird, and I'm not sure how to feel about any of it. Sorry this is so long and rambly. My therapist says writing it all out is supposed to help process everything, but honestly, I just feel exhausted reliving it all. Edit. To those asking if I'm still staying at my parents' house, yes, for now. Mom still needs a lot of help, and Dad isn't fully recovered either. I'm working remotely most days, which is a blessing and a curse. Blessing because I can be here. Curse because I never get a break from all this.